Mike Lewis, welcome to the Preconstruction Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Gareth.
I am absolutely delighted to have you on. We have been putting a bit of focus on the scheduling and project controls part of pre-construction at the moment. You are the third scheduler we've had on. Just to make an introduction, Mike Lewis, you are Regional Scheduling Director for AECOM Hunt up in Chicago. For anybody that doesn't know what a regional scheduling director does, give us an insight into your day-to-day responsibilities.
Happy to. So AECOM Hunt is a pretty large company geographically. We've got our headquarters based out of Indianapolis, which is head for our central region, the region that I'm a part of. That ranges from, I'll just say Dallas, Texas to New York, which is kind of an odd central region, but that's what it is. We have our West Coast. So as part of our regional scheduling director, I oversee any project that exists within that geographic region. It could be aviation-based, sports, mixed-use, residential. I got a handful of schedulers underneath me who are assigned to the projects based upon their scope, size, and just overall complexity. So any one scheduler could have upwards of 6 to 7 schedules, or they could be solely assigned to one. It kind of just depends on, again, dollar value and complexity. My job is to make sure that these schedules are set up properly, they're maintained properly. If there's litigation issues, I need to step in for those situations. I'm involved a lot in the pre-construction process for schedules. I help get them up off the ground, set up properly, so that way when somebody does take them over into the execution and the monitoring phase, I know that it's been set up right.
Yes, and I can't wait. See what you just mentioned there, the pre-construction phase. I can't wait to get into details on that. So that was a good context for our listeners. Let's now bring you all the way back. Nebraska University construction management degree. Give us the thinking behind that. Was it always construction for you?
So, like every person who is trying to get into college, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do at the time. I did know that the idea of sitting behind a desk all day, every day, was not something that I wanted to get into. I wanted to be outside, be a little mobile, try to use critical thinking in a lively situation that doesn't always exactly happen the way that you think it's going to happen. Construction management kind of caught my eye when I was getting into college, and I chose the University of Nebraska uh, purely because of its construction management program. At the time, it had a program where in 4 years I could get a major in construction management and a minor in business. When I met with the faculty and staff there, I was doing kind of the tour to colleges around the Midwest. They had it on all kind of laid out on a nice 11 and a half sheet of paper, and they were, these are the classes you'll take this year. These are the classes you'll take the next year. Here's how many credit hours you need. Here's all the classes that we offer, and here's the electives that you can choose to help you on your way. And I was just kind of impressed with how efficient it could be. So I was sold.
You loved the clarity. You loved the schedule, didn't you, Mike? You
Yeah.
loved the schedule. It was sitting there. You saw what you were going to take. And tell me now about that program, because you said there it was an impressive program. Give me an insight into how much operations, how much pre-construction, how much scheduling was covered across the life of the program.
Yeah, most of the faculty there had construction experience, so they had all kind of grown up in the business and then decided to, get into education. Scheduling, what they did touch on that during their processing. It was my senior year. They actually did bring out the P6 program that we use kind of industry wide today, heavy into all of the construction processes, and they opened it up and they gave you, very simple project to say, let's teach you how to schedule this out. And even part of P6, it was, let's hand draw the network diagram. Let's do a forward pass and a backwards pass. And so it was a whole semester kind of class on just scheduling itself. And I do have to say and admit that during one of the tests, I did mess up the backwards pass the first time. I haven't done it since.
You learn from your lessons. I
You
love the
gotta learn from
honesty, Mike.
you gotta learn from your mistakes.
Well, I have to say, honestly, Mike, I asked this question. We're nearly 116 episodes. I asked everyone about what they do within the program, usually construction management degree. Very few have got a full semester of scheduling. So that's interesting. And it obviously stuck with you.
It did stick with me. It helped me get land I think a second job out of high school, out of college. The Sergeant Lundy was looking for project controls individuals, people who had experience with P6. And of course, I raised my hand and I said, "Yep, I do have experience with P6. I know how to operate this system, and I do know how to schedule." And interviewing with them, very comfortable with my experience level. Even though they knew I was very green, they were like, "It doesn't matter. You've at least seen it. You know, kind of how to operate a few of the buttons. This will be an easy transition. We'll teach you the rest."
Brilliant. And that was a good opportunity because 2009, when you graduated, not many opportunities out there.
Yeah, no, it wasn't the greatest. Wasn't the greatest time. Actually, my first job out of college was I flew all the way out west to Bellingham, Washington, to do an airport rehabilitation for a one runway, one taxiway airport that was mostly used by people who were driving down from Vancouver, who didn't want to go to the Vancouver airport, but they would drive down to this tiny airport and fly to Vegas, and then they expanded the runway a little bit so that way they could fly to Hawaii.
Nice. Very cool. Not bad for your first project.
No, it wasn't bad. I got a good taste of everything. There was, the project engineer there, so I got a little bit of the taste of the schedule, but the PM really held that one close to the vest on that job. But I was out there taking tickets for paving machines. I was working night shifts. You got a taste of everything on that job.
Oh, listen, if you haven't done a night shift in construction, you haven't properly qualified. That should be the real fun. And then
Yeah.
talk to me now. So just over 5 years with Sergeant Lundy. Obviously working on power plants, P6 scheduling. It kind of has come from that industry, oil and gas industry. What was it like, and how advanced were they at that stage with P6? Did P6 literally run the project from start to finish?
Yeah, P6 was heavily engaged in the power industry. They love their project controls, their earned value metrics. They live it and they breathe it. Sergeant Lundy being the design firm, they were even at that, even in the design firm wasn't necessarily construction. They want to know what deliverables were there, how many man hours that they needed to actually complete the drawing set that they needed to provide to the client. We have to load all that into P6. We had to create earned value graphs based off of that. Even our clients wanted to know how much man hours, how much money we were spending according to what our schedule said that we needed to have complete, so that way they could quiz us and say, well, you're ahead or you're behind schedule. Are you going to overrun your budget or not? They were pretty advanced with their processes. I kind of wish maybe we could get a little bit into that as construction, but sometimes it gets a little difficult just because of how specialized each and every job is, how many trades can be involved on every one job. So it gets to be a little bit difficult. And it was, it's a nice process to have when you understand all the data that you can have at your reach to be able to get to. And we're still we're struggling, but I feel like we're getting there.
Yeah, and again, Mike, every company's different. I mean, going from that position to scheduling manager at the Walsh Group, give me an idea. Obviously, were you one of the first scheduling? Did the Walsh Group always have a scheduling team, or was it a case of they were putting it together and they were putting more focus on it? Because your experience and expertise coming from that environment that was heavy on scheduling, bringing it into Walsh Group, it must have been invaluable.
Yeah, Walsh reached out to me. They were looking for a scheduler specifically for a couple of jobs that they're having on the University of Northwestern campus. Um, it was attractive to me just because I wanted to get back into what I went to school for, construction. I wanted to build things. I was in the design world at the time, and I kind of wanted to get the branch back out, get back into construction. At the time, as far as I know, I was the only scheduler on the build group for Walls Construction. I think they had a few on the civil side, but I never got to meet them. But yeah, for 5 years, I was pretty much the go-to person for schedulers in the two building groups there at Walls Construction.
Mike, you've got to have some stories of pushback. My God. a scheduler walking into the Walsh Group, who have built billions and billions of dollars of commercial non-residential projects, and before you know it, now they're looking at you going, right, you're going to run it from the scheduling point of view. What was the response like to the from the VPs, the executives, the ops teams?
Well, like any company, there are people who like to schedule and there are people who don't like to schedule. Luckily, the two jobs that I was able to cut my teeth on first at Walsh involved a couple of folks that appreciated what the schedule can provide, what information it can give you, the forecasting abilities, the abilities to spot risks that are upcoming or opportunities that you may be able to improve your workflow. One of those guys that kind of lived and breathed a really bad litigation scenario, so he kind of knew how important it was to make sure that the schedule was accurate. We were updating it. It included the right amount of scope. People understood what the schedule was telling them, and if it was missing something, we needed to put what was missing inside the schedule, make sure we were tracking.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. A bad litigation project or a bad project is the only way to learn, whether it's pre-construction, scheduling, ops. You don't learn anything from a project that could just go swimmingly and exactly as it should. For the people that hadn't gone through that bad project, what was the fundamentals that you bring across them and say, listen, this is what scheduling is going to help you? Because I know there's a lot of people listening. There's a lot of senior estimators, pre-construction managers that maybe the scheduling team within their company is starting to get built and starting to have more influence. How do you communicate that? How do you, layman's terms, say, listen, this is what scheduling does, and this is how it can help?
I would say that for me, it wasn't I wanted to go in there and just kind of bully my way into, teaching them how to run a scheduler, or just say, dictate to them that this is how it's going to be. If somebody wants to learn or wants to appreciate what document can tell them, they kind of have to learn for themselves. So, getting back into Walls, transitioning from, power plant engineering side into a construction side, I asked a lot of stupid questions, and I try to teach that to those who are, becoming schedulers themselves now. It's just, if they don't exactly understand something, just just ask the question. Or while somebody's telling you how a sequence is going to go into a building, repeat it to them in kind of a dumb layman's way.
Yeah.
So like if okay, so you're telling me that we can't erect this beam until this wall is in place. And then you'll see their wheels turn and well, no, actually that's not true. And then so I try to just I repeat a lot of things back to people when I'm talking to them. So that because they have it in their head, it's going a million miles an hour, and they're trying to translate that onto a piece of paper. And I'm just want to make sure that not only did I understand it, but I want to make sure, this is what you're telling me, and this is what this document is now going to tell other people. So I want to make sure that we have this correct.
Wow, very good. Yeah, communication, isn't it? I mean, you hear the stories of Chinese whispers. Once it goes through three or four people, it generally comes out different the other end.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The schedule is unfortunately the other end of all of that, because every state superintendents, project managers, project execs, the subcontractors, even ownership, they all have their stake in the schedule. You've talked to each one of them to be able to put out this plan, and you've come up with this visual document, and that is the end of the chain. So if you miscommunicated with any one of them at any given point in time, then the schedule is just black and white telling somebody, well, you said this, so now this is what the schedule's telling you. And it's like, oh no, we gotta fix that.
It's interesting because when you think about pre-construction, you think about the delivery methods now used in non-residential. So you mentioned sports stadiums there, you mentioned real estate. It's getting way more complex. You mentioned there, what sort of delivery method does scheduling suit most? Because they are all very different in their own way.
They are all very different in their own way, and scheduling supports any and all delivery methods that you can think of. We use a lot of design build in our industry now. There's very few um, bid build methods that we would go after. A lot of times, our company is brought in very early in the stage to be able to set up some of these billion-dollar programs that are for aviation and for sports. Even the mixed use residential developers will reach out to us and say, hey, look, I'm trying to I want to construct this building. What's I have a designer lined up yet, maybe I don't, but I'm coming to you because I want to make sure that the napkin sketch that I'm drawing, we can maybe put some dollars to it and we can put a timeline to this thing so I can understand when I can have it and how much it's going to cost. So, scheduling is getting brought into the fold super early on all these jobs, almost as quickly as you're going to bring an estimator on board to do uh, a job. We're I'll be sitting right next to them to figure out how long it's going to take.
Brilliant. I love that. So basically, it's a team effort when you think about scheduling and estimating. And as you say, is there loads of collaboration, not only during pre-construction, but even throughout execution side as well? And do you find that the best projects are have a strong scheduling team and a strong pre-con team?
Of course. I
Yeah.
mean, if you don't have a strong schedule at the start of the job, it's going to be, you're midway through. You don't want to realize that the map you've been using is going to take you in the wrong direction. So we try to nip all of these errors as quickly and as early as we can in every job. Of course, we're not going to catch every single thing, but we want to be able to trust the plan that we've put together from the start. So even as early on in the pre-con process as we can go, we want to be able to put as much detail as we can inside of our schedule to understand, the estimators are telling us there's 1,000 linear feet of this wall. There's like X amount of cubic yards of concrete. How many tons of steel do I need to put in here? And then we need to be able to take those quantities that they've come up with their own calculations or that they've gotten feedback from the market because they've been allowed to go out and ask certain trades, how much do you see that this job has in terms of quantity and how long do you think this is going to take? So then that way we can take those pieces of information, plug it into the schedule and understand on a time sequence how long this is going to take because, construction is, as my boss likes to say, it's math, it's production. How many square feet of a wall can I erect? How many guys do I need to be able to put up this pieces of, how many cranes do I need? He loves to say it's math.
It's funny that, right, Mike? Because when you think about mid-sized GCs doing 600-700 million a year, and they don't have a scheduling department, that's left on the estimators to almost guesstimate. How dangerous is that for the client?
I would say for us, we don't use our estimators for our scheduling purposes. If I wasn't to exist, it would probably fall into the hands of our superintendents and our project managers because in our pre-con process, we're going to drag them in as much as they're allowed to because of course some of them may have active jobs going on, especially the superintendents. We don't really have a lot of idle superintendents. So the PMs are going to come in and they're going to use their experience to be able to map out a schedule and I know it happened at Walsh, and I'm sure it's happened at AECOM Hunt, but there have been some PMs, who just like, I'll figure it out in P6, and then it's kind of clicking the button, and it's not happening as quickly as they want. So it's a nice revelation when someone like myself can come in and help speed up the process, so that way we can illuminate what they have in their head, and be able to communicate that with others.
Yeah. And see, when you say about the PM, right, because you're there along with the pre-con team and the estimating team, does the PM still get involved that early, or can you literally map it all out from them, from the information that the estimators are giving you, and then do a handover when it comes to handing over the ops?
Yes, generally the PM gets brought in these pre-con chases because the idea would be, oh, the PM can take it through to construction. Maybe sometimes this job is in a different geographic region and there will be a handoff, but the idea would be, oh yeah, he's brought in. So then that way there's a client interface early on. He understands where the estimate's coming from. He understands how the schedule is built. Um, yeah, I wouldn't say to try to avoid the handoff because sometimes maybe just someone else builds the pre-con and then someone else has to go build the job and then they have to try and dissect what just happened inside of pre-con while they're trying to build the job at the same time. So to try and reduce some of the miscommunication and errors, I think the PM who's on that job or the PX is ideally going to be able to see that through all the way from the start. And we tell that to our clients in our interviews too, because they always are very curious, who is going to be on this job. It's always, the who to them is very important, especially, in the
Yeah.
sports world, who is very important because all the owners of these teams, they kind of know, okay, well, there's only like a handful of companies that build these billion-dollar stadiums. So there's only a handful of these. So names get tossed around. So we're always kind of like, who's going to be involved in each one of these projects? Because I know the
We
names.
want the A team, basically.
That's right. We want the A team. Don't sell me on the B team.
Brilliant. And that's the beauty of it. So, Mike, if we can kind of spin it now, obviously, I mean, the reason we're doing a kind of a series on scheduling is it's not talked about enough. How are you finding the next generation of schedulers? I mean, do you see them coming out of construction management degrees? You talked about in your own story that you actually fell into scheduling. Can you or do you go into AECOM and see the superintendent, the project managers, project engineers that have a talent for this? Or how do you go out and or do you pick them up in the likes of the Nebraska programs where you know that they've touched on quite a bit of P6 and scheduling?
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Where do you find talent, and where do you find talent in any one of these? No matter if you're a scheduler, an estimator, or a project manager. I think the school system, no matter what university you go to, generally is geared towards training individuals to come out and be ready to be project managers, APMs, go up that tree. I would say a lot of people do have a talent for scheduling, but generally they probably fall into it more than they want to become it. I have an individual who works as a scheduler for me, and he was an APM, and he was just kind of done with traveling. And I offered him, hey, you want to try coming over to the scheduling department? You already know how to build. So when somebody talks to you, you can see in your brain, in your mind's eye, how this project's going together. All I'm just going to do is teach you how to illustrate that onto a program. And I have another individual who, has a background as a teacher, and she's excellent as one of the best schedulers that we have. Her ability to understand the schedule, understand the qualifications that need to go into each one of the schedule, and then explain it to people in a way that everyone understands. And she's one of the best. Where I try to find talent is a mix of all over the place. I think ideally I try to convince those who are maybe jaded from their current position. Maybe they don't like to travel. Maybe they just don't see the future that they thought they were going to have inside of their APM or PE track. And I can say, hey, why don't you try a different side of the company? I can help you see a job from start to finish. You can still be just as involved as you were. You're just looking at it from a different spec. I have tried to hire newer schedulers who are coming out of college, unsuccessfully as of yet. I have had a couple interns. I don't think when an intern is applying for a position in the construction company, they're kind of floating their resumes all over the place. And then I get on the interview with them. I'm like, this is a scheduling position. You're going to come in and you're going to learn one side, one point of the iron triangle of cost, quality, and schedule, which is super important in your project management career. Just come on for a summer and we'll teach you how to see a program from a different light. You're not going to be doing the bathroom partitions submittals for 3 months. I'll teach you how to go out into the field, talk to the superintendents, understand the productivity that we've put into place, quantify, come back, update the schedule, make sure that the right scope is being applied. Are we ahead of schedule? Are we behind schedule? All things that a project manager should know. But I think sometimes it's a little bit of a hard sell.
Yeah.
I haven't quite understood why. I think there's a bit of a stigma on scheduling because I think people think that it's like you're a bit of a, I don't know if people think that you're a bit of a hermit. Like you just kind of sit behind a computer screen, you collect data that somebody gives you, you type it into a program, and then you spit out a report, and like that's your day. And it's like, well, that's the bare minimum of your day. You know,
But it's the
I
same
have,
stigma happens with pre-construction and estimators. Literally, Mike, people just think estimators are in a dark room in the corner with a piece of paper and a calculator, and it's just and essentially that's what we're trying to get out there. It's such a good, rewarding, and important. I mean, the importance of scheduling and pre-construction cannot be emphasized enough. And it's interesting that you say the operations, getting people from operations who have understood and built it and understand it in their head. All you're then teaching them is then how to do a good schedule, run a good schedule, and if they can communicate, which they should have done when they were in the field. But it's all different types of people that need to go around all these different facets of the construction industry: BIM, VDC, scheduling, pre-construction, and then they just fall into what they love.
yeah, no, yeah, you're trying to, find that square peg that, fits exactly what you're trying to do. I didn't necessarily think that I would be a scheduler for, a decade. When I fell into it with Sergeant Lundy, I thought I was going to be, oh, I'll do this, for a little bit. I'll wait for the market to pick back up, and then I'll just hop right back into the APM train. And then, I found, that it's a role within the construction team that allows you to see the job holistically, almost as a project manager, to be able to say, okay, I have to step back a lot of times and look at it from a 10,000 foot view, because I don't want to get down into the weeds and the nitty gritty, because if I do that, then I'm not seeing the forest through the trees.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing for me, right, Mike? That's what the thing that gets me in career fairs, right? Because there are people out there, and I want to bring it back even before they actually go to university or college. In high school, there's people there that have the stigma that construction is a hard hat and boots and dirty and mucks and building and drills and cables and pulling cables and civil work. But in actual fact, the people that maybe don't want to get into construction because of the dirt and the stigma of it, and people don't want to get into IT, or they don't want to get into teaching. They want something a little bit more rounded, a little bit more high level. The likes of scheduling and pre-construction, it's not really explained to them at that stage. And then, of course, there's not a degree to go along with that. How do we fix that?
It's a good question. I don't exactly know how to fix that. Um, you know, you try to go, I've gone to a couple of career fairs in my career. I've gone to, I've spoken at, Chicago Build. I try to explain to those who are willing to listen, this is, my job doesn't require me to get up at 4 in the morning to open up the fence so that way the plumber can drive through on, November 30th when it's freezing outside and there might be some rain. I have a pretty good, work-life balance. I'm able to support the jobs that are needed, sometimes from behind a computer screen, sometimes over Teams. Sometimes it requires me to get out into the site and to walk around, put the boots on and my hard hat on, go step in the mud to understand what exactly the project team is looking at, so then I can conceptualize what their problem is, so then I can help illustrate that into the scheduling realm. I mean, to me, to use another analogy, that the scheduler is the navigator on the ship. If everyone has that role on the ship, PM is the captain, we're supposed to be going a certain direction. I need to be able to know that, I understand his vision, and then whenever the team wants to make a change, what is the outcome of that change? What can I do to put that into the schedule to then show how does the schedule react to the decision that we want to make? Is it a good reaction or a bad reaction? And if it's a bad reaction, how do we mitigate it? Can we mitigate it? If it's a decision that's, external to us, we need to be sure that we've inserted that problem into our schedule to make sure that we communicate that, look, this is something that was out of our hands that is now affecting our path. We're risking our end date because of this decision that was made externally and provided to us. We can help you mitigate it, or we can't help you mitigate it. Everyone has all the RFIs and the emails and the correspondence to go through it. The schedule is is the picture of how this is going to happen, and it's worth 1,000 words. It's one of the first things that people reach to, when things go bad. So,
And
what did the schedule say?
and that's it. You've got to have something. Otherwise, it's just your word against my word. It's just completely blurred lines and gray areas, and as you say, it ends up in litigation. But when you think about early on, I mean, I always think pre-construction, and what I'm seeing in the market is a lot of the best operations people now getting into pre-construction and setting the project up for success. Will we see that on the scheduling side as well? Because I would imagine, like you've just said about changes orders, RFIs, if we can fix as many of them as possible during the schedule and be able to pick them out and go, that won't work. You need an extra day there. You need an extra 2.5 days there. You need to do this before that. And that will then alleviate any of the problems at operations. Will we see some of the best operations people getting into the scheduling?
I would hope so. I can't say for sure because you're right. There are a lot of talented folks who have, cut their teeth in operations, big jobs, challenging jobs, and then they decide to get into, the pre-construction realms to kind of help make sure that those jobs get started off on the right foot. I would welcome one of those guys to come
Yeah.
into my realm to be able to make sure that, we are helping to create accurate schedules that we can provide to the project team so that they know that their roadmap going forward is only going to help them. Um, yeah, I would hope that we could see some of these operations folks get into scheduling. But again, I think it turns back to the stigma a little bit. Maybe those operations guys are like, I don't want to get into scheduling because then I'm just going to be stuck behind a computer screen all day. I won't be able to get out there and see anything.
Yeah, and listen, fair play to them as well because what they do is incredible. But the ones I agree with you, we've got to get into the gals and the guys that are out there now and are getting fed up with it. Maybe their life has changed, circumstances have changed, that they need a little bit of more consistency, work-life balance, a little bit of flexibility. One thing I did want to ask as well, Mike, was if there's someone listening to this now that is interested in scheduling or thinks, you know what, it's my time in my career that I need to start looking at something like scheduling or pre-construction. First of all, what sort of tech stack do you guys use? Is it all heavy on P6?
Yeah, we're heavy on P6 only because it's the most widely used system industry wide. I know there are other programs out there, but to switch from P6 to something maybe like Power Project it's probably gonna make us take a step back and make sure that we're using the program properly. It's like hopping from a car to a plane. You want to make sure that you know how it's going to operate before we do it. That's kind of a whole company switch. So yeah, we're very big into P6, and I don't see that changing any in the near future.
Good. Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And how difficult is it to pick up? I mean, you mentioned you came out of college with a little bit of P6. How quick does it take you to get up to a good standard where you can take a project and run a schedule?
When we bring someone in, it's who hasn't really used P6 a lot, we'll send them to a couple-day training course just to make sure that they know how to click the buttons. Learning how to click the buttons is probably just the hardest part. I would say probably after a couple months you'd be pretty fast at it. Especially nowadays, the younger generations coming up there to pick up something like, I mean, it looks intimidating the first time you see it just because it's a live program. There's a lot of buttons, a lot of capabilities inside of it. You don't want to make sure you screw something up, but it's pretty easy to pick up, which is why it's one of the selling pitches. It's like if you know how to build something, I can teach you how to run the program. That's not the problem.
Yeah, that's it. It's easy. Yeah, and once you have the attitude as well, and if you, I would imagine scheduling like you touched on at the very beginning. If you're not good at asking questions or taking in information, then scheduling's probably not for you.
Yeah, if you're gonna, I would say, for me, it's you have to be willing to really want to get into what the project is. You want to be invested in it. You want to be part of all the meetings. If you think you're going to get into scheduling and you're just going to be, collecting data from somebody on a given day, inputting it into the schedule and then spitting it back out to them, just kind of reporting the news all the time. Um, I would say you're not going to work well at my department because I want you to be able to get out onto the site. I want you to understand. You don't need to understand every drawing, but I want you to understand the drawings. What are we building? What are the challenges of the site? Do you know the superintendent? Do you speak to the project manager? Are you invited to OAC meetings? Are you involved in the decision-making processes when somebody wants to do a what-if analysis, or are you just kind of receiving information and just reporting back to people? Those are, if you're that individual, yeah, scheduling is probably not for you. I'm sure there are places you probably find success doing that in the scheduling world, but if you're going to be successful doing it in a construction environment, I would say, the attitude's everything. You want to be able to be positive and ask the questions and be invested in the project that you're supporting.
Brilliant. Love it. Information gathering is so key. And as you say, collaboration, being able to give the right information. So if I would ask you now, just before we finish, Mike, what is the biggest challenge now within your role as regional director of scheduling? What would you say?
Like everyone else in the industry is finding individuals to be able to perform the work that we have scheduled. I mean, we have a big backlog of work that's coming up. We're trying to build two NFL stadiums, and we're getting into $2 billion terminal projects. Just alone right there, requires a handful of people to be able to do successfully. Not to mention the multitude of other jobs that we have underneath this. So it's finding the individuals who have a passion for construction, who have a good attitude, who want to get into maybe help out on the scheduling realm to be able to help support all these fun and challenging projects that we have coming on. That is the biggest challenge at the moment.
Yeah, I love it. And you know what? That's one of the biggest reasons why people should consider scheduling as well, is the growth opportunities. And if there's a project engineer, a superintendent, an APM listening to this now, or even someone even in pre-construction, maybe they're doing estimating and they think, you know what? I think scheduling is more in line with my skill set. Where would the best place to get you if they had a follow-up question, they wanted to kind of continue the conversation, learn a little bit more about P6 or scheduling?
Oh yeah, no, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. That'd be the best and easiest way to get to know me, or to reach out and to ask any questions. As a last little pitch to any one of those guys who's listening, if you think you're going to become a scheduler and you're going to lose sight of, if you think you're going to distance yourself from the project, that's completely false. I think being a scheduler is probably one of the best spots to be on a project, because you're going to be right next to every project executive, superintendent, and PM when they're having critical decision and critical discussions to understand how the project is going to be affected and what the project needs to do in order to rectify itself. You're right there in every single one of those discussions. You're a right-hand person. You're never distanced from yourself. So, don't think of scheduling as just a news reporter. You're very critical to everything.
I love it. Shout out to all the schedulers. Mike, that's been brilliant. Really, really helpful. And folks, if there is a question in the show notes, check below. I will put Mike's LinkedIn profile. And again, if you have any questions for him, you can run them through me or go direct to Mike and hit him up on LinkedIn. Mike Lewis, really, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No, it was a pleasure, Gareth.